Carolyn Doobie here. Oh, what's the play for today? Well, today I have got some big chipboard letters that, well, they were brown and I couldn't have that. So I'm going to put the rainbow on them and a little bit of stenciling using spray inks. But what word is it? It is the most important word to me when it comes to creating the one word, the one thing that without this happening, nothing else will ever happen. Now, as I'm playing around with the spray inks, yep, I'm going to use it as a traditional spray ink, but guess what? Spray inks aren't just for spraying. You can use them in other ways too. It's basically wonderful liquid color. Here's what I started with. Actually, this is my second time starting with this. Now, I've got these letters here, and yes, I can spell all sorts of things like czar and tarts, but the word I really want to spell is start. Now, I've got some gesso on there from the first time I started these, and I decided that just wasn't nearly enough gesso. So I've gone and put gesso all along the sides, the top, for a full solid covering of gesso. And you might be wondering, why? Why do I want all that gesso on there? And for me, it boils down to, I don't like the brown of the chipboard. I want it to be white. Now, if you're brand new to gesso and you're not sure why someone would use that, gesso is used as a primer. And artists have used it for centuries, all that kind of stuff. And it's how you seal, say, the canvas that you're working on. You put a layer of gesso, and that makes the paint stay on the top layer. It doesn't absorb in as much, that kind of thing. For here, yeah, it's a bonus that it's going to keep things from absorbing in because, well, that chipboard is pretty absorbent. But the other thing is I really just want it to be a white surface instead of a brown surface. And can you substitute white paint for gesso? For what I'm doing, most definitely that would do the same job. Now the gesso is completely dry and I've put a stencil on top of here. This one's Now Is the Time that I designed for over at StencilGirl Products, and I positioned it very randomly. And I'm hitting it with a very random amount of spray ink. I can't even really see exactly what I'm doing there. Now the spray ink that I'm using is Marabou Art Spray. And the reason why I chose that one is because it's an acrylic spray, which means that when it dries, it's going to be permanent. It's not going to move. It's not going to react to anything. That's really important to me because I'm going to put more color on top of this. Now my stencil's nice and juicy with lots of that spray ink on there, so what I'm going to do is flip it over just to clean it off and also capture some of the pattern there. Sure, the pattern will be backwards when I lift off the stencil, but it'll be one of the early layers in an art journal page. Basically, I'm getting a head start on something I'm going to do in the future. And I've got all that excess ink off of my stencil. Well, I can't leave all that white space white. I need to bring the rainbow in here. And what I'm going to be using is spray ink. Yep, more Marabou Art Spray. Except this time, I'm not putting it out of the nozzle. I'm going to pour it into the wells here of this paint palette, and I'm actually going to brush it on. Just because spray ink comes with a big nozzle on it, and it sprays wonderfully, doesn't mean that you can only use it that way. Spray inks can do more than that. The biggest trick is for me to wait for the other layer to dry, because if I put yellow on top of black that isn't dry, you betcha it's going to change how that looks. And that's about to happen here as I dip into the yellow and head to the next letter. Yep, you're going to see a little bit of that black smear around. Oops. Yep, outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to kind of blot up some of that yellow-black look to it and wipe off my brush here and then head on to another color and just keep adding more. Now, if I was completely logical about this, what I would do is do all of the yellow on all of the letters first, clean off my brush, and then go to the next color. And then do all of that color, clean off my brush, go to the next color. But that's not how this works for me. Because right now, I'm really not thinking. I'm just kind of going, hey, let's put that color there. Let's see what happens. And sometimes it works out wonderfully. And other times I realize, wow, I still have an awful lot of green on that brush when I dipped it in the blue. So I'm not seeing the blue as much as what I wanted. Now, is that going to be the end of the world? Absolutely not. But I did wise up and realize, hey, what if I had more than one paintbrush? What if I kind of had a different paintbrush for each color? There's a crazy thought. And I'm just adding color now here and there, just trying to fill in all of that white space. Anytime I see white space, I want to get some color on it. So that's what I'm doing here. Not a lot of thought going into it. I'd like to tell you that I had some kind of scientific formula, but no, it's pretty much impulse. Where do I feel like putting this color or that color? One of the things I did realize is that I wanted purple. I wanted some purple, but I didn't have any purple. So what did I do? I simply mixed a little bit of that red and a little bit of that blue, and magically I now have purple. I have a habit of forgetting to clean out my paintbrushes, so that's why I went and got a little cup of water so that I can put them in it as soon as I'm done using it, because otherwise, well, when I come back a day later, everything's pretty much dried on them. So why did I choose the word start? I love that word because to me it's the most important thing about creating, about play, about making things. After all, if you don't take that first step, how can you take a second or a third or a fourth? So that's why for me, the very first step is often the most important. Now, by the way, it doesn't mean that it has to be a great step. It doesn't have to be a good step. It doesn't have to be the right step. It just needs to be a step. The play just needs to begin. Now, if you'd like some help getting more play into what you're doing, getting yourself started with this, I highly recommend, and I am a bit biased, my free workshop called Permission to Play, because it's all about how to give yourself permission to play, as well as an introduction to various mixed media techniques. Now, once I've got these fully loaded with the rainbow and they're completely dry, I'm going to put them up on my wall. And what am I going to use to attach them? I'm going to use command adhesive Velcro things. That way I can put them up and it won't mess up my wall, and if I change my mind, I can move them around easily. And of course, I have links to everything that I've used over on the blog at acolorfuljourney.com. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've been enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you know of somebody that you think would enjoy watching this, I'd so appreciate it if you shared it with them. And of course, if you want to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button so you'll know as soon as I have a new one out. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.